Instruction, golf news, equipment, travel, interviews, course profiles, and more. Your weekly fix of all things golf is about to begin. It's the Flagstick Podcast with your hosts, Jeff Potter and Scott McLeod. Yes, this is indeed the Flagstick Podcast, and brought to you by our good friends at TaylorMade Golf Canada, introducing Stealth with Carbon Face for better energy transfer and more ball speed. Welcome to the Carbonwood age. To learn more, visit TaylorMadeGolf.ca. You think I said that enough times? This is so. Jeff Potter, your host, or one of your hosts, and with me always is Scott McLeod. Scott, welcome in, Scott.
Thanks.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thanks. Better when I get my coffee in me. Yes,
I see you've got your cup. I've got mine right here. I think I'm on my third cup.
Nice.
As always, I never drink a full one, so by the time I drink three, I've probably drank one, but that's okay. It's better than drinking three. That could be nasty. Oh my gosh, Scott. Oh my gosh. We're kind of getting back to a little. We recorded last week. It was the whole, taking a breather. We're back, and I feel like this week we're kind of a little bit more back to normal. I feel a little bit more relaxed this week than I did last week, even though it was a few days after the storm and the weekend with the Flagstick Open and stuff. I feel a little bit more. I feel regenerated.
Yeah,
rejuvenated.
Yeah, I mean the obviously the after effects of the big Ontario storm still having an impact around the region. Just saw, one of our friends, Jerome Mizon, just got his power back last night after 7 days. I would say for sure. I mean, people are feeling a little bit more at ease, but Ottawa and lots of other areas in the province are certainly still recovering, and including the golf courses too, which we'll talk about a little bit later on.
Oh, absolutely. So listen, your daughter had a Sweet 16 this week.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Crazy.
How good is that?
Yeah, it's kind of wild. Obviously we both have teenagers, and you get those milestones in life, and it was cool. It was kind of neat, hard to believe for sure.
I know.
And, celebrations continue. We went out for a quick 9 yesterday, played an hour and 25 minutes.
Those are the good 9s.
We're slow players or whatever, but it's fun to have a 16-year-old, I guess. Now a little scary. I guess it means we're just a little bit older as well.
Exactly. Now comes the G1, and then the
I did buy her a car though for her birthday.
Oh, good. Yeah. What'd you get her?
I got her a Matchbox Subaru.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
I had to be able to say I bought her a car on her birthday.
Oh,
despite the fact it's this big. So,
oh my, I'm so sorry, Elsa.
Yeah, well,
that had to happen to you. But when you get your license, maybe he'll buy you a real Subaru.
There you go, in time.
Awesome. Well, listen, we have an awesome show as always for you this week. We got some great discussions ahead on the front 9, a number of golf stories from the week and the weekend, and on the back 9, we're going to share some thoughts about our favorite clubs, kind of a gear that's dear to us. And Kevin Haime is going to help smooth out your putting a little bit.
I like that.
Before we can get to any of that, we have to get to the front 9. The front 9 is brought to you by Metcalf Golf Club, a natural setting, a pleasant challenge. Looking for fun golf at a great rate? Save 15% when you prepay. Visit metcalfgolf.com. All right, Scott, let's dive into it. Let's jump right into the front 9. I'm really excited. I'm excited to get to the back 9 because it's a really cool topic. But yeah, before we get there, we have to play 9. So let's kind of, dip into the storm waters a little bit and kind of just a little follow-up because there has, obviously, we have kind of returned to a little bit of sense of normalcy when it comes to the cleanup after the storm. Most golf courses are kind of back, operating
getting there
normally, but there's still a few that aren't. And one of those is obviously the Ottawa Hunt that's still got a little ways to go. And with the CP Women's Open coming up in August, they've got a lot of work to do, but they're getting there, right?
Yeah, they are. Saw a lot of pictures this week from the Hunt Club. A lot of people out there helping out, as we mentioned last week. A lot of crews with the membership. they still have some issues with electricity for their pump for watering the course. They have a few different things they have to go on. They still have to go out and tag and mark a bunch of trees that need clean up. Obviously, they have to make it as safe as possible for the hunt club. So it might be a couple more weeks before they get going. They were right in the heart of the storm,
Yeah,
as we talked about last week. So it'll be a couple weeks, I think, before they're going to be fully open again. But they obviously want to make sure the golf course is safe, and they obviously want to make sure it's all right for the CP Women's Open. Also saw some other photos from some courses we didn't even mention last week. Nation, for an example, they definitely have a couple hundred trees out there.
Yeah, and that used to be a tree farm. So
very much, yes. So
there's a lot of trees out there.
Yeah, prime target as far as that's concerned, and a few others. And then unfortunately, we did hear this week of the passing of Robert Haime, who was playing at one of the other local courses, which means we had two golfers pass in the region due to that storm, which is sadly unfortunate. And certainly we pass on our condolences to his friends and family.
For sure, definitely. Thoughts and prayers go to their family. It's tough because golf is an outdoor sport activity, and weather plays a part. All the time. If it's not a storm like this, it's lightning, and we hear countless times people get struck by lightning out on a golf course. Very good friend of ours and former PGA professional Bob Flaro was actually had a tattoo of a lightning bolt that he had as a result of that happening as well. So it happens. It's very unfortunate. It's sad, and again, our thoughts and prayers go out to their families. Now shifting gears a little bit, well, speaking of PGA, the flagstick.com PGA of Ottawa Tour got things going this year at a course not too far away from, 20 minutes, half an hour from me, but at the Castleview Golf Club in Castleman.
Yeah, the Spring Open got underway yesterday. Unfortunately, I was not there, but Joe McLean was out there covering it for us. And Mike Dagenet shot 69 and won the main division. That's his third time winning the Spring Open. He was the player of the year in the zone in 2021. And to no surprise, in the senior category, Graham Gunn posted a 1/73 and got the victory there. So a little smaller field, maybe just people are just that much busier right now, but a strong field nonetheless. And they had to deal with some winds out there as well, and the greens were pretty fast. But overall, it was a good start to the season. And then the Summer Open comes up on June 13th up at the Renfrew Golf Club. That is the next event. That's the day after the Canadian Open. So I don't think I'll be making that one, but I will be playing the Pro at Eagle
yes
Creek,
you will,
which is going to be in July. So but it's nice to get the season started again. These are great events, not only from a competitive playing standpoint, but also from a social aspect too. You see the new members of the zone out there. Players get to know who the other pros are in the zone, people that have kind of moved in, changed positions and so forth. So it's as much as a social thing as well as a competitive thing.
Yeah, I mean, the we've been obviously flagstick.com has been the title sponsor of the PGA of Ottawa Tour for quite a few years now. And we're always happy to continue to lend our support and sponsorship and coverage and whatnot to what the PGA does, because it's kind of like it's the other side of what they do, right? I mean, PGA professionals, they kind of sometimes get pigeonholed into the idea that they're in the shop, and they're selling golf clubs and they're taking green fees and you're running tournaments and stuff for the members. But to be a PGA professional or PGA of Canada professional, you have to be able to play. And it's nice that the tour exists for these guys to be able to go out and play some competitive golf, because they're not tour players by as far as PGA tour players. So they're not going to be out there making their living playing, but this is part of their living is playing golf and having these types of events, competitive events for them, even if it's only half a dozen times a year, is really great. And Castleview's a pretty cool track. I remember back in 1997, I think it was 97 that I was quoted as saying that it was one of the most interesting layouts that I'd ever played. And I know that Claude Leclerc
He ran
used
with that one.
in his marketing material for quite a while. And you know, the interpretation of what that meant is subjective,
sure.
obviously, but
Totally.
you know what I ultimately meant by what I said about that golf course, and I'm sure that a bunch of the pros that had never played there before, that played in the Spring Open, would attest to the holes that you're playing. There's some really interesting and cool holes, and the layout of the golf course. There's a ravine that runs sort of through the property, par 3 that gets used to be a par 4. And now it's a par 3 that you hit over this ravine. I believe it's the 14th hole. I'm trying to think.
I believe so. Out by the road there.
Yeah. The you know, and then some of the holes out by the highway that you see coming in with the big Castle View sign. You know, there's some really cool little holes in there. There's some straightforward, not exciting holes.
But
there's so many really cool little holes.
Yeah, you have to think out there for sure. I mean, it's not a course you just stand up and kind of hit the ball. There's a couple of them that are a little bit more wide open, but there's a lot of variety there. And I think that's what lended into your interesting aspect. And they take a lot of pride in as well, taking care of the golf course. So the greens are usually really good. Early in the year, they've got some big greens, but you're right. It's an interesting golf course, and the fact that you're just not hitting the same shots over and
exactly.
over again.
And that's to my point. It's just it's like you don't stand up at the tee and go, "I've seen this hole before."
Right. Exactly.
I stand up on the tee and go, "Oh, what do I do here?
What do I do here?" Yeah.
Exactly. So kind of a golf course you have to play once to really figure it out. And I think Dash probably has played.
No, he hasn't. Actually,
come on.
That's actually his first round there.
He is. You know what? I gotta say, I know we got a lot to get through, but Michael Dagenet is. This guy is just unreal. I mean, he is such a good golfer. Hits it a long way. Now he's not a young guy anymore.
No,
and he's not like. And I don't mean he's like 70 years old here or anything like that. That's sorry, Dash. I didn't mean it like that. But he's been doing this for a long time, and he's been good for a very long time. He's playing in a tour event, a local tour event, against some younger, guys, whippersnappers that are hitting it, in the threes. And Dash can still move it out there. And he's very competitive.
Well, he could choose, obviously, to play in the senior category if he liked, but he prefers to play in the main division.
Why bother?
Well, just, for a little extra money and stuff like that. And you get a little tougher test. And again, some of the top players here, it's not like these are chops. I mean, Dash has obviously been to Champions Tour qualifying school a few times. Graham Gunn's played on the European Senior Tour. Lee Curry, who was in the mix in the main division, used to play the Corn Ferry Tour, Canadian Tour. There's some really good quality players there. So it's not like you're tipping it up and not having competition.
No,
for sure. You definitely have to get your game in shape, which, makes it a little tougher too for some guys, especially the first games of the year. These are the first games of the year for some people. They have not played at all. So
I'm glad he's on my team for the Ping Challenge Cup.
Oh yeah.
And that's happening. That's happening at the end of the year. So I think that victory just sealed Dash's spot on the team. So congrats to him for that, and good job by all the other players that played. I'm sure you enjoyed Castleview, and hopefully I will see you in Renfrew. Okay, OVGA had a field day at Greensmere recently. What happened up there?
Yeah, so that took place on Monday. This is not only a field day, it was a qualifier as well. So pretty important. Nice thing is good turnout. It was men's, women's, senior men as well. 120 players showed up to play, which is great to see. Brad Goodman, who we know from coming and playing in the Flagstick Open a few times. He shot 71 and was the top guy at the field day. And then following up behind him was Max Lizondo, who finished 5th at the Flagstick Open. He was in at 73 with Ryan Sevigny, and all three of those guys also earn a spot in the OVGA match play. That's going to be at the Canadian in August, and they also earn a spot in the Tunis. It's a Tunis qualifier.
Nice.
That's going to be, which is a Quebec major, if people are not familiar with it. That's going to be held at Rideau at the end of June.
Beautiful.
I've got the rundown as well. I mean, we can go into the nets, the grosses, and so forth, but people can go to the website, flagstick.com, and check that out. On the women's A gross side, Lise Jubenville, she took top spot, just ahead of Lucy Pouliot and Terry DeLewis. And in the senior men's, Jim Crawford, who is a tournament director with the OVGA, he took the low spot there at 73, just ahead of Tom Henderson. That would be Brooke Henderson's uncle, and Peter Harrison, the former quarterback from Queen's University. I wonder if he still gets introduced that way, from Ottawa Hunt. They both tied at 74. So if you want to check out the net scores, B flights, everything like that, just go to flagstick.com. We have the rundown there.
Beautiful. Now, switching gears into junior golf a little bit, Play Junior Golf Tour continues to move forward. Obviously we talked about them squeezing that their first event in last weekend with the Rideau event,
in the weather.
With the storm, the day after the storm, they got it in. They were actually up at Black Bear Ridge.
Yeah, they were second event of the year, the 15 event schedule. Had a little bit better weather. Unfortunately, I think they were up against a number of other competitions and qualifiers, so slightly smaller field than the first event. They had players playing in 8 different categories. I'll just name the winners. I won't say, kind of what category. Then again, people can go to flagstick.com and check it out. But Landon Touchette, Zach Moore, Justin Henniger, Mimi Brader, Russell Aid, Mash Adamek, and Wilson Dornekamp and Marley Murray were your 8 winners in the various categories. Again, we've got a full recap like we do always up on flagstick.com to check that out for the Play Junior Golf Tour. Their next event is at Amherstfield.
Oh, nice.
Down in Kingston here for the St. Lawrence Junior Invitational, an event that's been long running, a lot of players over a long time. So that'll be their next event coming up.
Cool. All right. Well, the Play Junior Golf Tour, obviously, which we're a big supporter of, continues to trek along. Now we're getting into a little bit more of a widespread look here, not a little less local, but the Senior PGA Championship wrapped up, and a Canadian. It was close to having 2 Canadians right there as well, with Weir and Ames both, but good showing by both of those guys this past weekend. Yeah,
they're in the mix. This was down in Michigan. Obviously, we mentioned this because of the Canadian aspect of it. Stephen Ames ended up taking second to Stephen Alker. Alker charged back on the last day. There wasn't much Ames could do there. It was the 5th top 5 finish in 9 events this year. Weir ended up tying for 4th, which is good to see. I mean, there's no Canadian has yet to win a major on the Champions Tour. Obviously, these players have both won events on the Champions Tour,
but not a major.
But not a major yet. But obviously they're getting closer, and still fun to watch. I mean, a lot of people are very familiar with these players, so it's good to see them still playing well.
How the heck does Bernard Longer still like?
Oh, I know.
It's like even my youngest son Brandon, who's a golfer and follows golf. We're watching it because I'm a little bit more intrigued. A little bit more caught up, I think, in the Champions PGA Champions Tour, only because those are the guys, for the most part, those are the guys that I grew up watching. Like, those are, I still like watching the PGA Tour. It's exciting, but watching the Champions Tour, you see a lot less robotic golf swings and a lot more creativity in how they move the club from through the ball. But Bernard Longer, it's like Brandon turns to me and he says, is he like always in the top 5? Like, hasn't he been playing golf for 60, 70 years?
Yeah.
Like, well, no, but I get what you're saying. He's not a young guy, and he's got a bit of a quirky golf swing as well, the way, his takeaway and whatnot, but repetitive, and he just seems to be able to get it done, and he still moves the ball out very well for an older guy.
Yeah, and the thing with him is that he perseveres over everything. I mean, he's had yips over the years. He's tried every single putting method. He's got a number of injuries he's been dealing with, which inhibits his play. But he's always there consistently. Um, if he doesn't win, he's usually in the mix. It's pretty rare for him to play poorly in any event.
Jeez. Oh, we wish. The PGA Tour Canada now is getting things going in Victoria.
Yep.
And I mean, obviously, at some point or another, some of the players, some of the guys like Noah Steele, we'll start to see them on the leaderboards in some of these PGA Tour Canada events. But they get going in Victoria, right?
Yeah, they do. Noah, for example, is one of the players, sort of like Miles Creighton as well, that are playing down PGA Tour LA. So they're playing Latino America. They're actually in Colombia this week. So they'll jump up and catch up with the tour probably a few weeks in. But this is actually the first official event for PGA Tour Canada in a number of years. During the COVID time, they ran an unofficial tour. They ran a short schedule of only 4 events, so what they call the Canada Life Series in 2020. In 2021, they ran 8 events. They still had some rights and privileges that the players earned from that, but they weren't kind of as official.
Right.
And this is the first full schedule. So getting underway at Uplands, their traditional spot to start on the West Coast. Nice to see. I had a look at the field. A lot of great, talented players there. Both professionals and amateurs. They had the Monday qualifier yesterday. Some nice fresh faces coming up and playing there. Obviously, seeing the Americans come back as well.
Yeah,
players from other countries, which is what we didn't see last year. They ran a split tour last year. They ran the Form A tour down in the U.S. and they ran a Canadian tour, but it was mostly for the players that were staying in Canada that were Canadians. So yeah, they're getting underway, and they'll be heading their way east. And then back into Ontario a little bit after that. So yeah, good to see, and another bit of golf we can follow this year.
Absolutely. Okay, so we got a couple more things to quickly touch on in the front nine here on the Flagstick podcast, and one of those is the U.S. Women's Open is this week, and major's a major to me. Senior
100%.
PGA was just finished up. We've already passed through a couple of majors on the PGA Tour, and I'm excited about this. It's at the Pine Needles, Lodge and Golf Club in Southern Pines, North Carolina. But it's a U.S. Open. It's the U.S. Women's Open, and it also we know that Brooke Henderson's in the field, as well as Maud-Aimee LeBlanc.
Yeah, we've got 3 Canadians in the field. Brooke is returning after a month of not playing. Undisclosed at this point why that decision was made, but I guess we'll find out. I know she was out for a practice round yesterday. If you follow our tweets, so catch us on at Flagstick on Twitter. I've got the timings for her practice rounds and stuff like that. But yeah, she's back playing. Maud-Aimee LeBlanc and then amateur Lauren Kim. So we've got 3 Canadians playing.
Nice.
Very storied golf course as well. Pine Needles has held some fabulous U.S. Women's Open in the past. Winners like Annika, Kari Webb, Christy Kerr, for an example. Fabulous place, very supportive of women's golf, and another one of those great Pinehurst area golf courses. So this should be good visually to watch as well.
Beautiful. Okay, last thing on the list, the RBC Canadian Open. So we want to take a little bit of a look ahead at the upcoming coverage. We know that some major players have committed. It looks like it's going to be a pretty awesome field for this edition of the RBC Canadian Open.
Yeah, it definitely is going to be. Again, we've got a return back from the from the hiatus. The last event was in 2019 at the Hamilton Golf and Country Club. So a lot of excitement around this. Obviously, we had Brian Crawford on to talk about it, the tournament director. But now we've had even more commitments since we had that last interview, including Justin Thomas, the recent PGA Championship winner. So a lot of people will be excited. That adds a lot to the field here. with Scheffler, McIlroy, Dustin Johnson, Cam Smith, Matt Fitzpatrick. We've got some extra Canadians in there. Brandon Leonard worked his way in there. Aaron Cockrell was given an exemption, who's been playing well in the European Tour. I know he was out yesterday with Corey Connors and Michael Gligic and Leonard. They were playing a practice round at St. George's. Cool local story as well that we'll talk about. We can talk about it now, but people can expect to maybe see some content about it. But our good friend Hayden Underhill, who did play in the Flagstick Open, obviously was part of that horrific accident at University of Southwest earlier this year that unfortunately took the life of many of his teammates, his coach, and a couple other people that were also involved in the accident. He and his family are going to be the guest of Golf Canada next week. Lawrence Applebaum, the CEO, so they're going to be treating them to VIP access, and hopefully we'll see what happens as far as date and price, if they're able to get home there in time. But, a nice extra little bit of a story as well. And I'm planning to be up there and attend next week and to see the event. So, we'll provide some coverage from there as well, not only from on flagstick.com, but, on the podcast as well.
Awesome. Well, that sounds amazing. Okay. We've powered through the front nine here on the Flagstick podcast, but we got to take a quick break. When we come back, Scott, we're going to have a little bit of a putting tip from Kevin Haime. He's going to help smooth out your putting a little bit. And Scott and I are going to talk about the gear that's dear. I'll leave it at that. We got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Over the past 40 years, you've inspired us to make a lot of great drivers. All great, but all eventually reach their limit. But while we were making all these drivers for the present, we were also hard at work making the next generation of driver. Because where titanium ends, carbon begins.
And we are back here on the Flagstick podcast. And as always, we need to take a look at improving your golf. And we're going to head out to the lesson tee with our good friend Kevin Haime, brought to you as always by the Kevin Haime Golf School. It's always the right time to play better. Whether you need private lessons, a better short game, custom club fitting, or as in this case this week, help with your putting, visit kevinhaime.com. And remember, better golf is a lot more fun. So yes, indeed, on this episode of Flagstick Podcast, Kevin is going to help smooth out your putting. So let's take a look at this.
Okay, golfers, time for a quick tip. This is one of my favorites. I use a loonie and my putter to work on my transition, the smoothness of my stroke. Many people we work with are really quick in their downstroke, kind of jerky, and they hit at the golf ball. I love this little drill. It doesn't cost you anything. Give it a try. So put a loonie in the back of your putter behind the face. And then the trick is when I swing the putter, I don't want to lose the loonie until impact or a little bit after. Watch this, everyone. Nice smooth transition. Did you see the way the putter went back and through with rhythm? That's what I'm after here. I love inexpensive homemade drills and tips. This is a good one. Stick a loonie in the back of your putter and you'll start making more putts.
Yeah, we definitely, that would help. We all definitely need some help with our putting. Yeah. And, maybe that might just be a little snippet of something that you can do to help improve your putting stroke and maybe drop a few more birds, or in some of our cases, save bogey. There's a lot of other things that you can do to help your putting as well. So be sure to visit your PGA of Canada professional. And if you think you need help with your putting, and ask.
And don't be afraid to look at putting lessons. I get people all the time. All they want to do is they want to make their golf swing look as pretty as possible. Mm-hmm. They don't spend enough time practicing their putting. Even when you work with them on putting and you say to them, have you practice your putting? They're like, oh, well, yeah, I hit a few putts before I went out to play. Like, that's not practice. So take Kevin's advice there. Work on your putting. It is a critical element of the game. For most players, it's over 40% of your strokes, and you don't get better unless you put some work and effort in.
There you go. Put in the work.
Put in the work.
Put in the work. And putting in the work does, as Scott said, does not mean just going and hitting a few putts now and then, or whacking a few balls out in the driving range. I mean,
no.
It's honing the craft, as the pros will probably call it, is honing the craft. It's dialing it in, muscle memory, all that kind of stuff. It takes work if you want to get better. If you don't want to get better and you just want to play the way you're playing, well,
sure,
then keep doing what you're doing. What is it? The expression, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Cliche as it may be,
true.
It is also true.
Yeah, very much.
Okay. Let's dive into the back nine, presented by Golf Sim Gurus. Work on your game all year round in the privacy of your own home. Custom golf simulators, setups built to your specs and to fit your budget. Visit golfsimgurus.ca to learn more. Listen, we got to dive into this topic because I saw this on the this is what we're going to talk about. I'm like, oh my God, my list is going to be so long. How am I going to shorten this thing?
I know.
But this is an awesome little topic to get into. And I'm sorry if it might stop us from getting to topic number, our final thing, in really deep, but I want it. This is big. I like this. So you put forward the idea that we were going to talk about gear that's dear to us, and
right.
To kind of like talk about the equipment that we really liked or and why or how it impacted us. So
I'll tell you, this is the hard part. One, we're both over 50 now, so we've got a lot that we've gone through over the years. Two, we've also been in the golf business for decades, having been involved with retail as well. Lots of manufacturers, playing. We're both club geeks as far as, picking up this. If we're on a road trip, we're going to go to every golf shop that's around. We could tell stories about that, and we will actually at some point on this podcast talk about stories of going, hey, let's go to a golf shop in Cape Cod and pick up some Ping woods.
I still have
play
them,
those. Yeah, so those are great. So that leads into this, which, like you said, it makes it very difficult when you start to look at your list. And I literally, I was the same thing. I'm like, I'm just going to write the first 5 things and I'm going to leave it at that, because if I sit there and stew on it anymore, I'm going to have a list of 100 items.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And everything has a story. See, the thing is, this is the thing is this.
Yes.
Every one of these items on the list, there's a story associated with it. So this topic in itself could be an entire separate podcast on its own. And maybe down the road, we get a couple of more people to jump into a recording of a special edition of the Flagstick podcast to get some other ideas, like and not just some people, like some prominent people to talk about this very topic. But right now it's non-prominent people, you and me, gonna talk about this. So like this was your idea, so why don't you lead us off here?
Okay, well, you know what? Obviously, going down memory lane, I had to, I had to first sort of assess what was still left in my house, which is scary enough as it is. I keep threatening to have a yard sale of some kind, but we'll see if that ever happens. But when I thought back right away, and I thought about clubs that maybe had a significant place as far as there's moments I thought about, and I thought about equipment. That's how I tried to go with it. I tried to go with not my favorite clubs or anything, because there's lots of those and we could do tons of that, but ones that sort of jumped out in my mind. And for some reason, the Yonex 80X 300 driver of all things. So if people are not familiar, and maybe we'll get some pictures together here, hopefully, maybe, who knows, that we can put up, and that might be difficult, but we'll see. That driver was interesting because it was an extra long driver. So it's actually the 300E. is
Right.
actually the exact one, which was a 48-inch driver. And this was the first driver that I used competing in long drive. And at that point, this was a way different category of equipment than what you see now in long drive, where you've got interchangeable shafts and club heads that are really designed for long drive. And the fact that, not just from a length, but from the ability to stand long drive competitions and repetitive striking the golf ball at super high speeds. This was a carbon head, which again was designed to be a little bit lighter. It was a larger head for the time, which really wasn't. It was maybe 200, maybe 250 cc's, maybe not.
Oh my God.
I know. Think about that.
That's insane.
And then, they ended up enhancing this driver. It was used by a lot of long drivers at the time. It was sort of a big thing. There was a number of athletes that were using it. I liked it. The only problem with it, and thank God at the time I was in retail and had access to a bunch of them, they tended to crack.
Yeah.
And they eventually added a metal plate to the face to kind of help out with this happening. But I can literally remember being at a Canadian Long Drive Championship, and the head just split down through the top after warm up, and it was the one driver that I really, really liked. So this was a purple shaft that they had, and again, didn't really have a lot of the technology. It was just whatever they threw in it.
Yeah.
This black head, you can remember this driver, obviously. Expensive at the time.
Very.
And it was my first one before I went to a titanium driver for long drive. But I can remember having to carry, I don't know, I probably had like 6 or 8 of them in a Yonex bag or whatever when I went to do long drive stuff. And for reference, this is 30 years ago. I would have been 22 to 24 years old at that time. The World Long Drive hadn't really kind of reached its peak. They had regional qualifiers, and then you would go up to nationals in Canada, and then qualifiers from there would go on to the Worlds. Never got to the Worlds. Did okay. Got busted out at the Canadians, close to qualifying and they only had one spot at that time. So I got busted out in the grid, in the brackets, and but yeah, it was a neat club.
Yeah,
odd noise. It was very, very.
Yeah, it didn't really make much noise. It
was very
dead.
hollow,
Back then it's
foam filled.
Foam filled. Like all drivers back then were. It wasn't until much later that they became hollowed out. They were all foam filled back then. And it was a constant thing with the foam breaking down on the inside, and people would bring their clubs in with the rattle, and we'd have to we'd have to pop the shaft out, and then we'd have to, get the foam, the broken foam out, and then, epoxy the shaft back in. The thing is, so you had a 46 and a 48-inch version of that driver, I believe. I did. Yeah. And the 48 was the one that was kind of the big bomber. Now, I recall at playing around a golf at Loyalist Country Club, and you hit that thing, and you hit it. And back then, Loyalist Country Club was only 9 holes. So what you play as the back 9 at Loyalist now was the only 9. Yeah. And I recall, I believe it was let me think here, 1, 2, 3, 4th hole, which was a par 4. Kind of a blind green, because you kind of hit up and to the left a little bit. You hit it onto the front edge of the green, and it was 405,
something like that.
I distinctly remember. Why do I distinctly remember because it's 405? That's why I distinctly remember it. It was an insanely long,
many miles an hour ago.
Yes. But as we talked about earlier, you still move it out there pretty good for an old guy.
Oh, wow. I got to keep it ahead.
Sorry.
I got to keep ahead of I can't do it now. I mean, obviously got junior students that, these kids now just rip the golf ball. They're super strong or whatever, but it's nice to be able to get the golf ball out there. It seems funny when I sit there and say to them, you know what? I used to swing it faster, and they're like, whatever. So I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. But certainly the sport has evolved by a lot. And, that standard as far as hitting it, I had limitations. I was only 6 foot tall. All of a sudden guys came along. I can remember we were in Florida, and remember there was a long drive competition, and all of a sudden, you know, saw this big Viking came up. Basically, I was leading the one competition, and you know, next thing you know, it's like a 6'7" guy, you know, smoking the ball out there, and I'm like, I'm done. There's nothing I can do. I mean, you know, there's guys, you know, that have come along over the years. You know, Jamie Sadlowski's and whatever, that, you know, and certainly was not in their class in any possible way, but, you know, of just smaller athletes. But, you know, there just tended to be more and more athletes that came along that got better and better, and it evolved the sport. And, you know, it was great to see. But yeah, early drivers like that Yonex ADX 300E, they sort of set the tone for what would happen in the years that follow. And just fondly remember that club. And, you know, like I said, only played it for a couple years until we started to get into the titanium ones, and I didn't even put those on the list. Some of the early ones that had with those, but a distinctive driver for sure.
Nice.
You've got a driver. You've got a driver to start.
I have a driver too. Now, distinctive might be the understatement for this one, because there's the how this driver was created and how it ended up in my hands is kind of interesting. So there was a club company way back when you had the shop with your partner, Jim Petrunka.
Yep.
And I was working with you guys there. And one of the sort of, I guess I'll call it a lower end companies, Palm Springs.
Right.
You know, you see a lot of these clubs in retail, a lot of this type of club in retail. They're not the high end $400 driver. They're the mid price.
There's probably a lot more of those in the 1990s, because there was a lot more companies that were trying to, you know, carve a space in the industry. And, you know, it was a lot harder to stick around for sure.
It was in this club. So this was a Palm Springs Mr. Big.
Yeah, you didn't even have the name down there, but I remembered it right away.
Yeah, it's right too. Palm Springs Mr. Big driver. Now, what was unique about this driver were two things. Number one, the head of the driver was polished chrome.
Oh, so, it was that one.
Yes. Oh. So this driver was just a driver. It's kind of like I'm not going to call it a knockoff of a
Big Bertha.
Yeah.
Club.
And what we did was we polished the gunmetal finish that was on it, the matte metal finish, whatever you want to call it. We polished it off on the upstairs in the shop at the store. We polished it so that it was polished right down to the point where it was like chrome. Yeah. Like see your face in the head of the driver chrome.
Yeah, it looked like one of those soldiers in Battlestar Galactica.
Yes, Cylon Raider.
Yeah,
I think we might have actually called it the Cylon Raider driver at one point.
Cylon Warrior or whatever.
The second unique thing about this driver was that we put a Sandvik
Cylon Raider. That's
tie shaft.
Yeah,
blue, like metallic blue titanium shaft in this driver. And I believe, in keeping with the norm with me back in those days, I had Garland grip on it.
People don't even look that up. That company is long gone.
So this is the unique polished head driver, metallic blue shaft, and this Garland grip on it. Crazy head. Now that in itself is just, and why it's on my list is because I love that driver. For one thing, it was swing weighted. I don't know what swing weight we had, you know. Back then, we were always playing around with the swing weights of clubs and adding. I
wonder whose basement that is in these days.
I have no idea. But now here's the thing. Okay, now what I know, that I did this later on, but I found a Mr. Big driver years and years later, and I ended up ordering that shaft. I wanted to rebuild this club. So I ended up ordering the shaft from Sandvik in the U.S. We used to pass by the Sandvik factory.
Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So we used to pass it on the way to the PGA show in Orlando every year. And so I contacted them, and I got my hands on the metallic blue titanium shaft, and I had that head, and I polished it up. I rebuilt this driver. God's honest truth, that thing sucked so bad. I may have hit it good when I built the first one.
Nostalgia is a terrible thing.
The second one was terrible. I don't know what the deal was. Maybe it's just, I don't know, but why it's on the list is just, again, this is the clubs that are dear to us. Well, it was dear to me when I first built it. It was dire to me when I rebuilt it. So I want nothing to do with it. But it was, what a cool club it was. It got a lot of
it was a neat shaft, and I think it got a lot of attention because John Daly kind of played a couple of them, and a lot of people got interested in it. People looked at it as potential. People were looking at titanium as the next possible thing for club heads, so they were assuming that the as a iron or a shaft that would have similar qualities or whatever, but it just wasn't very malleable to make various different designs and things for fitting and so forth. So it really turned out not to be the greatest material as far as a shaft was concerned.
And my understanding of that particular the way, because the shaft was because it was titanium, it was lighter weight. So it could be made as strong as a steel shaft, but lighter than a steel shaft. The problem was that the flex options, the flexibility of it, it was too rigid. Like, it was just, you couldn't tip it the way you could steel. So it almost had to be the right flex at the raw length, because as soon as you did anything to it, you stiffened it up like cutting 2 inches off of a hockey stick. That's, you can't do anything to make it more flexible the other way by tipping it differently. So anyway, cool club, loved it. That's why it was on my list. Now you got a putter on yours, and I love these putters.
Yeah. We sold a lot of those.
Do you still have one?
I do not. I've looked at some over the years, but again, nostalgia is a great thing. When you look back and you go,
sometimes it's best it stays nostalgia.
Yeah, you would stay that way. So the Ram zebra putter, the mallet putter, it is still one of the best-selling putters of all time. Obviously was made use of by players like Ray Floyd, Nick Price on tour. It was popular in the 1990s and had a distinctive look, had a zebra pattern, obviously lines across the club head. And it was also an adjustable weighted putter. You could actually have a weight port underneath the head. You could take the plate off and actually add weighting to it. So that made it popular. There was various versions of it. It was definitely the heyday for that company. And, I played that putter. I don't even know how many years that I had it, but I certainly had some low rounds with it. They probably had nothing to do with the putter, but, you sort of attach it to it, and that's why you sort of like it. But it got me into playing mallet putters. There really was, prior to that, I didn't really play around with mallet putters that much. It was always sort of blades. But again, just from a nostalgia standpoint, it's certainly one that was kind of neat. And I was just thinking in my brain of our good friend Rich McLean, and do you remember what he did to?
He had a special paint job that he put on his. It had like flecks of.
It was like a rock paint finish or whatever that he did. It was just I don't know, it was a disaster. He loved the thing or whatever, but it was just kind of funny to think back of that. And again, it's nostalgia more than anything, but and going back and, seeing some in used bins over the years, I thought, oh, I should always get one. But then you look at it and go, oh, that's maybe not what I thought it was. So anyways, I've just left it at that, but it certainly was one that stood out for me over the years.
All right. Now, chances are, though, since we're talking so much about everyone, we're not going to get through a whole list of 5 here before the end of the show, but maybe a couple more.
Sure.
I'm going to skip down my list a little bit here, just because I like the fact that some of these items on here have stories. And interestingly enough, the next one I'm going to talk about on my list is another club from the same company. You're shaking your head. Why are you shaking your head?
I'm just laughing because most of the people that are listening to this podcast, I don't know, it depends, whether they remember this brand or not. It was a brand, actually, if you remember Nevada Bob's stores in their original formation, I think it was more of a house brand for them a little bit.
Yeah, it might have been.
And it ended up, kind of going out from there. And, if you dig through the used bins, you can probably still find some. But yeah, go ahead and tell your story, because I love this story, because I witnessed what happened with this club.
I felt it. So this was a Palm Springs beryllium copper wedge.
Fancy. Yeah.
And it had a dark brown, I know it was a steel shaft, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay,
But
yeah,
it had a finish on it that made it sort of look like graphite.
Right, but it was anyways, and it had a garland grip on it as well. So you seeing a trend here? I love those garland grips back in the day.
I think there was just a really good deal.
It was a good deal, and they were cheap, and I couldn't afford anything else.
Yeah.
Even at wholesale, I couldn't afford anything else other than they were good grips. So, but this was a beryllium copper wedge. Now, I absolutely adored this wedge. It was a beautiful looking club. It felt great when you hit it. Sharp, like a really sharp leading edge on it. Great out of off the fairway, especially.
Yeah.
It was really, when I got up, had a wedge shot in, that club,
all the confidence in the world,
I could swing away and nothing bad was going to happen when I had that wedge in my hand. And then something bad happened.
Oh yeah. At Wooden Sticks
Wooden Sticks, yes,
during Ontario Golf Hall of Fame Day, when we were paired together. I believe that was the that was
and
the
I believe it was the 18th
hole.
And
right side, you're in the rough.
Yeah. And
I remember.
And right distance, I went to the bag and I pulled out good old faithful beryllium copper. And I took a hearty swing at it. Got a little bit of.
Now, we should say,
okay,
in regripping this club previously, we did notice that there was a slight dent in the shaft under the grip, which, we sort of passed over.
Or we ignored it, one or the other.
No big deal. It won't have an effect on anything.
No.
Guess what?
It had an effect. Nice swing, and darned if that club didn't break off under the grip in the middle of my swing, and the grip, the shaft broke, the grip tore, the thing whipped around and smacked me in the side of the head. And that was the end of
Jeff went down like a sack of potatoes.
Oh, it went, I was it was like I was shot. And and it was a sad day. It was a very sad day, because I think even after popping the shaft and replacing it once again, that club was not the same, because we couldn't replace it with the same shaft back at that time. It was so you had to replace it with probably some dynamic gold.
I can still see you falling to your knees after hitting that shot. I mean, it shouldn't have been funny, but I mean, this is a good reminder for people to check their clubs for any damage. Stay away from trees. Be aware that when a golf shaft snaps, that club head can snap back at you, or the shaft can. Pretty dangerous. And in this case, a little humorous. We say that now because you're okay. I think you're okay. We don't know. It may have.
Nobody really knows. It could be the reason for a lot of issues right now.
Yeah, exactly. But definitely one of those moments you remember being on the golf course and seeing. But R.I.P. to the Palm Springs beryllium wedge.
Now I gotta say, if I ever did run across one, down the road, I probably would get one.
You think you would? You'd probably look at it now and go, that thing looks terrible.
I don't know. It was such a great looking wedge. I mean, the wedges I have now look great too, but no, the wedge is stuck in my head.
That's what I mean.
Pieces of beryllium copper stuck in my brain.
Oh my. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Do you want me to do one more?
Yeah, why don't you do one more, and then we're going to we'll do one more, and then we'll dive into our product watch.
All right, this is a struggle here because obviously I have a few on my list, but I will go with the Callaway Razor Fit driver.
Oh, okay.
This is from 2010, and I actually still own this driver. I still have it. What ended up happening was I was playing golf on a trip to California at Aviara. I think it was at Aviara. May have been a different course. Doesn't matter. It was with Callaway. They were showing some products. Wasn't their best time for their company as far as products, but this driver was really something. It was really good. It just so happened I was playing with Luke Williams, who at the time now still works for Callaway, but at the time he was the guy doing a lot of their chief designs for their metal woods. And he had created this driver that was, a titanium driver, really clean, no alignment guides on the face. The cool part was he had a, we'll call it secret sauce shaft. He had this sort of archive of older shafts, of RCH shafts that, Callaway hadn't had in productions for years, but he still had access to. We go out and play. I'm demoing the clubs. He recognizes that my club head speed's maybe a little faster than some of the, than suitable for the demo clubs that they're getting us to play. So he's like, hey, he was a good player, rugby player at UCLA, I believe, strong guy, said, hey, why don't you use my driver? And I drove the ball super. It was at Del Mar. That's what it was. Okay. Del Mar was a golf club. And I drove it super well. And he joked, man, you should have one of those drivers. I'm like, yeah, I'd love to take your driver out of here right now. Anyhow, it became a topic of conversation. Scott Reed, who worked for Callaway at the time, who was the director for Canada, was part of those conversations. And then he happened to be out at the Pebble Beach Invitational. Now, this is not the AT&T. This is the event that's put on sort of in the fall. It's now sponsored by TaylorMade. Used to be sponsored by Callaway at that time. It was just a pro-am that took place. A lot of tour players come in, a lot of celebrities and stuff like that, and it's just kind of a corporate event. And they were making a couple of extra drivers for Adam Hadwin at the time. Scott managed to snag one of the builds for Hads and snuck it to me, and I played that driver on and off for many years. Just like I said, just a very clean, had a graphite design shaft in it, an ADI 7X, I believe, and just had a really clean look to it. Compact shape, was more for tour. Also had dual cogs as far as the adjustable sleeves on it. At that time, they were only offering a single sleeve fit for the retail, and this was more for the tour, so you could fine tune it. I forget, the loft was down to like 8.2 or something really exact or whatever, but love that driver. It was really cool. And I occasionally take it out. It's something I will take out maybe once a year just to hit, just for just for giggles. And I've hit it in the sim. Obviously not as fast as current ones, but still a solid driver, and one of those ones that I've decided actually to hang on to.
There you go. See, sometimes we do hang on to this stuff. Now, on my list, nothing on this list. There's one item on this list that I still have, and it's a persimmon-headed fairway wood by Cleveland that I still have, and I will not get rid of. Even though when I take it out and hit it, I hit it really well, but it don't go very far. And it doesn't go very high either, so it's a good penetrating ball flight,
but fun to hit. Well, designed for the golf balls at the time, right?
Just like those ping woods that you were talking about that I got at Cape Cod. I still have them. They're still in the garage. They're still in great shape. Every once in a while I throw them in the bag and hit them, and I hit those things still dead straight, but I hit those things dead nowhere. But they look pretty. They have the little dial a grip on them and stuff. Okay. I want to get into more, but maybe we'll like last episode. I think we might have to kind of set this apart for a part two.
Definitely.
We'll do that another time. But for the time being, we'll leave it there. We're going to take a quick break again, and when we come back, we're going to dive into our product watch segment, and we're going to talk about GPS watches versus laser rangefinders. So stay with us. We're going to be right back.
Introducing the all-new Spyder GT. With Pure Roll 2 to improve topspin and a fluted shaft to enhance feel. No matter how you look at it, it's stability from every angle. Only from TaylorMade.
All right, welcome back. And as promised, we're going to dive right into our product watch segment of the Flagstick podcast, brought to you as always by Greensmere Golf Club. Save 40% on all daily green fee rates with Flex Pass for only $425 plus tax. Visit greensmere.com for more information. All right, Scott.
Yeah.
You know, we've had discussions on the podcast in the past about technology. We had a segment where we talked about rangefinders and we've talked about launch monitors, and we've talked about just about everything under the sun when it comes to technology. But we're going to kind of look at a comparison now because one of the things you see a lot of now is you see the you know, people have their smartphones and they've got the apps on their phones for with the GPS in there, doing their, you know, their yardages and the maps of the courses and stuff like that with I guess like Golf Logics and things like that. But there's the watches now are becoming really popular. I know I have one, a TomTom, which unfortunately the battery won't hold a charge anymore, so it's dead. But it was very basic, not a lot of, you know, intricate detail to it. And of course we have rangefinders. So you know, we thought maybe we'll just take a look at sort of the comparison of the two things, like the watches or the apps versus you know, the handheld rangefinders.
Yeah, well, you know, distance measuring devices have certainly become a large category. I mean, we've had a number of surveys that we've posted, polls where, you know, a lot of people say they, you know, more people say that they actually use a distance measuring device now, of whatever kind versus not. Certainly see that out on the golf course. It's not always the case. You don't see people, you know, pacing off their yardages as much anymore. I still do that on occasion.
I do too.
When I forget my laser rangefinder, I had that yesterday, where I still paced it off and you know, kind of estimated. It helps if you're at a golf course that maybe you're familiar with and you know the depth of the green and where the pins might be located. And sometimes you don't really need that information anyway. So, but the big thing here is the fact that, you know, we get a lot of people that are maybe giving the gift of a distance measuring device to someone, and they'll reach out through our social media or email or whatever the case may be, and sort of ask, you know, what's better, a GPS device or a laser rangefinder? And really, it's not a case of better. It's a case of doing or using or buying whatever suits your needs, your purposes, your desires. But there's definitely a difference between the two. And as you said, when we talk about GPS products, so that, you know, they're obviously based on global positioning systems, and it's different than what it was before when there was only, you know, a few golf courses that were charted. Now every golf course in the world, you know, is pretty much done through GPS, and whether that's accurate or not, which, you know, again, that becomes one of the factors here of whether that GPS is accurate. But there is different forms, as you mentioned. Apps. There's small devices that would just attach to your hat. There's GPS devices built into speakers like the Bushnell, the Wingman. There are watches. There's a lot of different aspects of different devices. So they vary in form. So again, that becomes part of the selection process for people, is determining what's the form that you want. What would you make use of? What's less intrusive? What's easier? For some people, it's a lot easier if all of a sudden they have a watch, or, you know, like I said, something on the hat or the Wingman. It's a lot faster. And you know, that's easier than reaching into their bag and pulling out the rangefinder or the laser and then zapping it to get a distance. So that becomes, you know, that becomes a choice there as far as that form factor. And we see everything that's out there. I mean, what's your preference normally for you? What would you prefer?
I would definitely, I mean, if not at all was an option, I'd be more of a not at all. But I have leaned more and more, you know, as we talked about on a previous show, I lean more and more towards the rangefinders. I find, for me anyway, like I said, I had a TomTom, which was, you know, it's relatively older technology when I had it. But I just, the thing that I find with the devices, is the watches in particular, is just having to recharge them all the time. Like I just, you know, I had, you know, you've got an Apple Watch. I had for quite a while, I had a Fitbit watch. I think it was a Fitbit Charge, and it was a watch style. But, you know, you're wearing the watch, and when I wear a watch, I don't think anything of the watch. I grab the
Right.
watch like a regular watch with a watch battery, and I grab the watch, I put it on my wrist, I go out. I don't even really think too much about it not having any power.
Right.
And with those, Fitbit and stuff like that, it's
Every
like,
few days you got to
the
charge
thing's out
it.
of battery, and you got to
Yeah.
take it off,
Yeah.
take the device in, put it in the charger, and plug it in. And then I had to start having a charger in the car so that when it went dead when I was driving around doing work, I could plug it into the car.
And if a device is obviously being very active and seeking a global positioning system all the time and seeking a signal, it's actually going to deplete more. So battery power is definitely an issue. Most rangefinders, if you use a standard battery, which I think most of them are like a CR2 battery, they'll normally have about 10,000 zaps, for lack of a better term, as far as that. So that you're right, as far as that can go a long time, versus having that watch that all of a sudden you go to that round of golf and you get ready to go out and they're like, oh, I've got 10% power, I'm going to make it one hole. So there is a compromise there as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, I think I just replaced the battery in, Brandon uses a rangefinder all the time when he plays. And I think I just replaced the battery after 2 years.
Yeah.
And
some of them
it was
now
still working, but I was just like, it's been 2 years. Let's let's replace this.
Yeah.
So
and some of them now, like we mentioned with the Blue Tees one, they come with 3 batteries.
Yeah.
There's some that are out there on the market that they have free battery replacements. And again, they're not very expensive, but they're probably less than what a cable costs for your GPS device. But on the other side of it too, like I said, there is that convenience with those GPS devices that, courses are mapped all over the place. You don't have to kind of pull that laser out. You just kind of look. But that said, the targets are going to be slightly different as well. So the advantage for a GPS device is that, it will give you pure yardage from, the front of the green, back of the green, middle of the green, which is a little harder to do because we're on the same level, to do with a laser device. It's pretty hard. We can get the exact yardage to the flag, but we can't necessarily get what the exact front yardage of the green is or the back of the green just to know the length of the green. So that would be an advantage for a GPS device, versus a laser. But on the other side of it, that laser device then gives you the exact yardage to particular targets that you can see, which would be the issue then if we think about measuring for like a dog leg. Maybe you're kind of playing across the corner of a dog leg. Well, it's easier if you look on a GPS device to get that line across the corner of an area to give you an idea of how far you could hit it and not maybe get yourself in trouble. Whereas you can't shoot the laser like through the tree and get the target on the other side. So that's where the advantages and disadvantages come from the measuring aspect there.
I think that what it comes down to with a lot of these things is it comes down to comes down always to personal preference. It's like saying one putter is better than another putter is better than another putter. Well, no, I don't use the top of the line, most expensive putter on the market in my bag. I have a much more cost efficient putter that's still really good that I really like.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if my putter cost $150 and some other guy's putter costs $500. For that person, that $500 putter might be the greatest thing since sliced bread for making putts, and so be it.
Definitely.
For me, I've tried the $500 putter and it doesn't work as well as the $150 putter. So when it comes to rangefinders versus watches versus apps, it comes down to what you really prefer for yourself and your own game. I'd rather grab a little device, look through it, point it at something and measure. And frankly, when it comes down to specific yardages and whatnot, I mean, come on, the average golfer that's playing doesn't really need that detailed yardage to be able to play. I mean, I need to know when I'm playing. I need to know when I'm in the middle of fairway, how far is it to the pin,
or how
far is it to the middle of the green? Because honestly, I I can't hit it. If it's 150 yards to the middle of the green, I can't say, okay, well, it's 152.5 to the pin, so I need to dial back on a 6-iron or something. Like, I can't hit it that precise.
No, but those are two different choices then, because the laser provides the exact yardage to the middle. You're not going to get that with the GPS because it doesn't set the whole locations. You're only going to know the shape of the green. The other side too is that while the technology is getting better, we're still, with a GPS device, we're still depending on a transmission of a signal from the ground up to a satellite. And that sometimes can get interfered with. It sometimes can be a little bit slow. So sometimes I've found in testing some of the GPS devices that, while people sometimes will say, yes, they're faster because you don't have to pull the device out. Well, sometimes it's like a laser out, but sometimes the GPS device is still catching up so you're working your way towards the hole and you're going, that yardage is not right. And then eventually it gets the right signal and locates you and gets it. So, it can vary as far as that accuracy, but you're right. I mean, that general yardage that you see is usually fine for some. I will say though too that because the mapping aspects have gotten better and better, there are definitely devices. I've seen some Garmin watches for an example that now have greater details of information. You mentioned Golf Logics. They do some partnerships and things as well. They've mapped some of the green shapes. So some of the watches now will actually have diagrams of the greens as far as the undulations and so forth that are on the green. So again, it can vary by a lot, and price and budget comes into a factor
Big
here.
time. Absolutely.
All these devices really range by a lot. I believe there's one called a Golf Buddy. I think it's from Bushnell. I'd have to double check the name of it, but it might sell for $100, and it's a simple clip that kind of goes, it's a little square. It can go on your bag, or you can clip it onto a hat or whatever. Gives you the most basic of information, and it rings in at $100. Well, now you get into some of the laser rangefinders, you're getting $600, $700. So again, that's a budget issue more than anything. I think the biggest thing overall is this is really a general discussion and talking about preferences, but it's not a clear case of one being better over another.
Of course,
it's matching up what suits you from a budget standpoint, accuracy standpoint, how you measure, what information that you want. Again, with the laser, you can zap whatever target that you want. Those targets might not be listed on the GPS. And, again, as well, the form that it takes and how you're going to use it. So it's really player dependent more than anything, but those are some of the factors that would come into play in making a decision for a distance measuring device.
Yeah. And keep in mind, I've still noticed some golf courses still have yardage books.
They do, which I love,
which is so cool because I love. We used to back in the day when Mr. Lacasse owned the Eagle Creek Golf Course, prior to Club Link buying it. We here at Flagstick designed the yardage book that was being used at Eagle Creek, and that was prior to the Canadian Tour back then, PGA Tour Canada now. Being at there for the Eagle Creek Classic. And we actually went out with my brother Sean, who was our designer at the time. We went out and literally sketched, because we didn't have the Google Earth stuff. We had Google Earth back then. We would have just screen captured the but we went out and sketched and all the little nuances and mounds and stuff. And then when we drew it, we had to do all the shading of the and we went out. We had a laser pointer back then, and we had a big board, and we would go out and put the board right at the front edge of a bunker and laser it and get the yardage, and then we'd go to the back edge of the bunker and laser it, and then that's how we did it. Can you imagine doing that now? I mean, you don't need to. I mean, really, yardage books are cool, but they're hardly necessary. But they are cool. And, I
still love a good old yardage book.
So do I.
Obviously make use of them.
Can we add that as option 3 or 4 to whether do I want GPS, rangefinder, or yardage book? Because I'll take yardage book all day long.
I love a yardage book. Just the fact you can make notes, a little bit more limited now and stuff like that. But I love that obviously as a caddy as well. I mean, when you go out and caddy on tour, you're using lasers in practice rounds, but you're obviously not doing it during the tournament itself. Although, there's some different events that are allowed distance measuring devices now. We're allowed that at our local pro tour, and you see that in the PGA Championship and things like that as well. But a good old yardage book is always fun, and a lot more courses used to mark their sprinkler heads as well, which we don't really anymore. We don't really see that as much. You'll see that at some places, because it's costly to be able to do that and have them marked. But it was always interesting to go in. Although I will say, it took some time to obviously go and find the right yardage marker and find the right sprinkler head and match it up to the yardage book, and then sort out your yardage and do the math. Yeah, and that definitely could lead to some slow play for somebody who's not really familiar with doing that or anything. But in any case, you know what, I love just the good old 150 yard marker back in the day too. But those are some factors that you have to consider for those distance measuring devices. And if anybody has any other specific questions or whatever, certainly reach out, and we can try to answer that for you.
Cool. Okay, well, before we close out this episode of the podcast, the Flagstick podcast, just a couple of quick things. One,
sure,
Flagstick 2-Ball Championship registration is open.
Okay,
visit flagstick.com. The link is working. Everything is there. So I want to be very clear with people. This is going to be an awesome event. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be competitive. Because of the timing of the event being in the fall, we're not doing like a full big field here. This is a limited field event, so there will be limited team spots available, 4 divisions, and we'll sort those divisions out once we have all the team indexes, the teams in place, and we know what the total team indexes are going to be, and we'll divide it up accordingly. But get to flagstick.com, click on Flagstick events at the top. You'll see the Flagstick 2-Ball. And the registration is right there. I believe we also have a website, flagstick2ball.com is a direct website, but best just to go through flagstick.com and get to it there. Get your team registered quickly. We are going to be making an announcement probably in the next week about our title sponsor for that event, and thus we will also be making an announcement about the nature of the prizes and registration gifts, and some more details about food and stuff like that that will follow. The event is in the fall, so we're still ironing out some details, but you don't wait for me to make that announcement to see if you want. The registration gift is going to be awesome, as it always is with any of our events. So
you don't end up on the waiting list.
Which is what ask any of the 60 people that are still on the waiting list for the Flagstick Open. I hate to have a waiting list. I hate to have people on the waiting list, but the Flagstick Open, when we opened the registration for that, sold out in about 4 days. So don't wait. I've opened it. The announcement is made. There'll be an announcement on flagstick.com later this week as well. So when that happens, good luck. So get into it right away. Now, second thing is the Flagstick head covers that we talked about. They're, like I said, they're here. Now shipping. We're shipping. So there are still some here. Make sure that you get to flagstick.com. I am in the midst right now of setting up an online purchasing option, as opposed to the e-transfers that we've been using, so that you'll be able to buy it directly from the website. Awesome. And then I'll ship it out as soon as the order comes in. Probably we'll do the shipping on those things once a week, just so that I can ship them all at the same time. But that way, everyone, when they order it, they'll get it probably within the week. So get over to flagstick.com and get your Flagstick limited edition Flagstick head cover ASAP.
All right, good stuff.
Beautiful. All right, that's enough for the two of us for this week. I want to thank our sponsors, as always, Metcalf Golf Club, Golf Sim Gurus, Greensmere Golf and Country Club, and the Kevin Haime Golf School. And of course, our super awesome partners, our presenting sponsor, TaylorMade Golf Canada. Check out the new Stealth line of golf equipment at taylormadegolf.ca, and welcome to the Carbon Wood Age. I know that you're all enjoying this podcast. I want you to keep listening, keep watching. And be sure to follow us across all of the social media network, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And subscribe to Spotify, Audible, and Apple Podcasts so you can get the audio versions there. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like us, click on the notification bell. Make sure you get every single episode as soon as we put it up there. And get on over to flagstick.com, as we tell you every single week. Get on over to flagstick.com. New content, new information delivered to that website every single day. We don't want you to miss anything. As always, we really do appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Until next week, I'm Jeff Potter.
I'm Scott McLeod.
And always remember, go for the stick.